Fëanor was made the mightiest in skill of word and of hand, and great was his beauty, and a bright flame was in him. The first and greatest Dark Lord in the history of Middle-earth feared no army, no kingdom, no Vala that stood against him. Morgoth, the master of destruction, who twisted creation to his own desires, should have been unstoppable. But in the vast tapestry of his reign, among all those who opposed him, one name stood apart. Not a great king, but a single elf. Fëanor. Why would Morgoth, a godlike being of chaos and fire, fear a mere elf? What was it about this single craftsman, this lone warrior, that struck terror into the heart of the Lord of Darkness? To understand Morgoth's fear, we must return to the beginning, to the golden days of Valinor, where the fire that would one day shake the foundations of Middle-earth was first kindled. Fëanor was unlike any other child of the Eldar. His very birth left its mark on the world. His mother, Miriel, withered away, drained of life by the sheer force of his being. No other elf had ever been born with such intensity, such an overwhelming spirit. Even as a youth, Fëanor's brilliance was unmatched. He was more than just a skilled craftsman. He was a force of nature. He created wonders that defied time itself, shaping the greatest treasures the world had ever seen. And at the height of his power, he forged the Silmarils. Within these three perfect gems, Fëanor captured the light of the two trees of Valinor, an act so remarkable that even the Valar marveled at his skill. The Silmarils were not just beautiful, they were sacred. They held the purest essence of light, untouchable, unbreakable. Even the mighty Ainur, the divine beings who shaped the world, could not recreate what Fëanor had achieved. But there was one who coveted them beyond all others. Morgoth, who had once been counted among the Valar before his fall, watched Fëanor with growing unease. He saw in the elf something he had never encountered before, a being of pure will, unshaken by fear, unyielding in purpose. Morgoth was used to bending others to his will, corrupting them with whispers of power and lies. But Fëanor was different. He did not seek Morgoth's gifts. He did not bow, nor did he listen to the words of the fallen Vala. When Morgoth sought to poison the minds of the elves in Valinor, planting seeds of discord and jealousy, he found that Fëanor, instead of being a pawn in his game, was a flame that burned too brightly to be controlled. Instead of corrupting him, Morgoth only made him stronger. The lies Morgoth wove, suggesting that the Valar were holding the elves captive in paradise, that the Silmarils were at risk of being stolen, only fueled Fëanor's fire. But what Morgoth did not anticipate was that Fëanor was not one to be manipulated. Instead of turning against the Valar as Morgoth had hoped, Fëanor turned against Morgoth himself. And at that moment, Morgoth knew fear. For the first time, he encountered a will as unbreakable as his own. Fëanor, like the other elves, he was something else entirely, something Morgoth could neither predict nor control, and that made him dangerous. Realizing that Fëanor could never be turned, Morgoth chose another path. He would not manipulate him, he would destroy him. When he saw that words could not win, Morgoth turned to violence. He struck where it would hurt most. In a moment of ultimate cruelty, he crept into the heart of Valinor, slaughtered Finwë, Fëanor's father, and stole the Silmarils, fleeing to Middle-earth. It was the first murder in the history of the elves, the first true wound upon their kind, and it was Morgoth's greatest mistake. The theft of the Silmarils did not break Fëanor, it unleashed him. Morgoth had hoped that by taking the jewels, he would weaken Fëanor, strip him of his greatest treasures, and leave him lost and hopeless. But Fëanor was no ordinary elf. He did not despair. He burned, standing before the Valar, before his kin. He uttered words that would change the course of history, the oath of Fëanor. A vow so fierce, so absolute, that it bound him and his 7 sons to the endless pursuit of Morgoth, to reclaim the Silmarils no matter the cost. They swore vengeance upon any who would withhold the jewels from them, even if it meant war against their own kin. And as those words rang out across Valinor, Morgoth, from the shadows of his stolen fortress, knew that he had not silenced Fëanor. He had unleashed a force that would haunt him for the rest of his existence. With fury in his heart and fire in his veins, Fëanor led his people across the sea, abandoning the paradise of Valinor for the blood-soaked lands of Middle-earth. He did not wait for permission. He did not ask for guidance. He did what no elf had ever dared to do. He defied the gods themselves, and as he set fire to the ships at Losgard, leaving behind those who would not follow, it became clear that Fëanor would stop at nothing. He was coming for Morgoth, but could he truly stand against the Dark Lord himself? Could the greatest of the elves face the god of destruction and reclaim what was stolen? The battle for the Silmarils had only just begun. Before we uncover the fate of Fëanor's war against Morgoth, I'd truly appreciate if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's continue. Morgoth had stolen the Silmarils, shattered the peace of Valinor, and struck the first mortal wound upon the elves. But in doing so, he had not silenced Fëanor. He had created his greatest enemy. As the flames of the burning ships at Losgard crackled into the night sky, Fëanor stood upon the shores of Middle-earth, his eyes fixed upon the north, where Morgoth cowered behind the iron gates of Unbound. He would not wait. He would not rest. He would not stop until the Silmarils were in his hands once more. The moment Fëanor arrived in Middle-earth, he struck with a fury that left the Dark Lord reeling. The elves had barely set foot on this new land before they were met with an army of Morgoth's orcs, creatures bred in darkness, twisted mockeries of the firstborn. But Morgoth had underestimated his enemy. He had expected a broken people, weary from their long and treacherous journey. Instead, he found a force ignited by vengeance. Fëanor's assault was relentless. The elves cut through Morgoth's creatures like a blade through smoke, driving them back across the plains. This was the battle that would be known as Dagor Nun Gaeliath, the battle under the stars. Morgoth's forces crumbled before the onslaught, and for the first time, the Dark Lord saw his minions flee in terror. Fëanor fought as if possessed, his wrath a living thing that burned through the battlefield, leaving only ruin in its wake. And then something happened that had never happened before. Morgoth, the great and terrible, the self-proclaimed ruler of Ardor, refused to face his enemy. He had faced the Valar themselves in war. He had defied the might of Manwë, battled Tolkers, shattered the lamps of creation. But he would not come forth to meet Fëanor. Instead, he hid, like a coward. Behind the walls of Unbound, Morgoth waited in silence. He did not challenge Fëanor to single combat. He did not summon his power and descend upon the battlefield. Instead, he let his creatures die in his name, watching from his throne as the flames of the Noldor rose against his kingdom. Fëanor had done what no elf had ever done before. He had made a god afraid. But fear does not always mean defeat. In the end, Morgoth was still a master of destruction, a creature of patience and cruelty. He knew Fëanor's greatest strength, his fire, his relentless will, could also be his downfall. As the battle raged on, the orcs fell back, retreating toward Unbound, luring Fëanor ever closer to the Dark Lord's domain. And Fëanor, blinded by his wrath, followed them. He did not wait for his army. He did not call for his sons to aid him. He rode ahead, pressing into the shadows of Morgoth's land alone. And that is when Morgoth struck. It was not by his own hand. He would never dare face Fëanor in combat. From the depths of Unbound, a host of Balrogs emerged, led by the most terrible of their kind, Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs. Their whips of flame cracked through the air, their burning swords flashed in the gloom, and the battlefield was swallowed in shadow. Fëanor, even in the face of overwhelming darkness, did not turn back. He fought like a star falling into the abyss, his blade flashing, his fire consuming all in his path. But even the greatest fire, once surrounded, will begin to flicker. The Balrogs struck him down, their whips coiling around his body, their swords cleaving through his flesh. Even then, he refused to die easily. It took many wounds to bring him to his knees, and even as his blood soaked the scorched earth, he fought on. By the time his sons reached him, the battle had already been lost. The Balrogs withdrew, dragging their shadows back to Ungband, leaving Fëanor broken but not yet gone. His sons cradled him, ready to bring him to safety, but even in that final moment, there was only fire in his heart. He gazed north, toward Ungband, and through the haze of pain, he spoke one final curse against Morgoth. "Even now, Morgoth, I name you craven, and I will see the Silmarils in my hands again." And then, as the last words left his lips, his body turned to ash. There was nothing left to bury, no remains to mourn. He had become flame itself, leaving behind only legend. Morgoth had won that day. The greatest of the elves was gone. The Silmarils remained locked within Ungband. The war would rage on for centuries to come, but even in his victory, Morgoth had no triumph. Because Fëanor had not died a defeated man, he had defied the Dark Lord to the very end. And Morgoth, who had once believed himself untouchable, now knew that he could be challenged, he could be hunted, he could be hated with such passion that even death could not end it. Morgoth feared Fëanor not because of his strength, nor his skill, nor even his legendary Silmarils. He feared Fëanor because he was something Morgoth could never be, unbreakable. He had no master. He bowed to no force in the world, not even the gods themselves. The Valar could not contain him. Morgoth could not corrupt him. Death could not silence him. Even as the ages passed, as kingdoms fell, and the world itself was reshaped, Fëanor's fire did not die. The oath of Fëanor continued to haunt Morgoth's existence. His sons carried on his war, their wrath stretching across centuries, ensuring that the Dark Lord would never know peace. And in the end, even Morgoth himself met ruin. When the final battle came, when the Valar rose to cast him down, it was the war Fëanor had begun that ensured Morgoth's fall. His actions, his fury, his refusal to be controlled, it all led to the unravelling of the Dark Lord's dominion. Morgoth once sought to wield fear as his greatest weapon, but in Fëanor he had found someone who did not fear him, and that was something he would never forget. Morgoth thought he had crushed Fëanor, but in the end, it was the fire of Fëanor that burned his kingdom to the ground. If you love diving deep into the untold stories of Middle-earth, the legends that shaped its fate, and the battles that even the Dark Lords feared, then join us on this journey. Hit that like button to let us know you enjoyed the story, and subscribe with the bell icon so you never miss another tale from Tolkien's world.